The Starfleet life with the USS Dauntless. Are you brave enough to be a Starfleet officer? Do you have what it takes? Greetings. I'm Admiral Owen Swart, Commanding Officer, USS Dauntless, and this is the briefing with the Admiral for Stardate -269512.1. I am the Admiral in question, and today we're going to be talking about the USS Dauntless Communications Department. So, for those of you who might be new here, let's get into a little bit of background information about what that means. What are we talking about the USS Dauntless? What do we mean by communications? What do we mean by a department? There are a lot of interesting concepts wrapped up in there. Of course, if you are a member of the Dauntless, you probably know most of this already. But in case you're new, let's just let's just recover this. I see we're not streaming video to Discord. Apologies. There we go. That should fix that. There we go. All right, so if you are a member of the Dauntless, especially if you are a member of the active duty crew, you are welcome to join us for these recording sessions in Discord. So that is in the screening room channel. Active duty personnel are welcome to join. It happens every Tuesday at officially 12:30 p.m. South African Standard Time. A little late this morning, unfortunately, had some unexpected technical difficulties, but here we are. I know that it's an awkward time for people to join middle of the day on a Tuesday, but if you are available, you are welcome to sign on and join us in the chat. If you're not able to join us at that time, which is most people, I imagine, please watch this after the fact on either YouTube or Facebook. That's where those videos are uploaded. And if you have any questions or comments or other kind of contact that you'd like to make, please feel free to reach out either on YouTube or Discord or Telegram or Smoke Signals, Facebook Messenger, any way that you like, you can reach out and I will do my best to address your concern or question there and then, or possibly even address it in an upcoming episode. So let's get on to answering those questions. So what are we talking about when we talk about the USS Dauntless? So first of all, the USS Dauntless is a Star Trek fan club. Now, we don't really like to use that term, but it is the most accurate term. We don't like it because it's imprecise. It conjures up images that are not wrong, but don't give you a full picture of what we're all about. But we are, in essence, a Star Trek fan club, which means that we are a group of people who are interested in promoting Star Trek, not only as a form of entertainment, although that too, but also as a vision for the future. Gene Roddenberry, who is the creator of Star Trek, envisioned a world in which everything is wonderful. Well, pretty much everything is wonderful. And he sort of the pillars of that world included advancements in various different areas, be they social, economic, technological, scientific, and all kinds of things like that. And we, as members of Starfleet, want to do what we can to try and move our world towards that optimistic future as envisioned by Gene Roddenberry and as depicted in the Star Trek franchise, films, TV series, etc. But we're a little bit more than that. One of the things that we are is a Starfleet style club. What does that mean? That means that we have modeled our organizational structures, both in terms of our organizational flowchart, as well as our titles and even our uniforms, after the fictional Starfleet as envisioned in the Star Trek fan club. So most of the characters in the show are members of an organization called Starfleet, which is kind of a cross between NASA and Space Force, but sort of projected centuries into the future. And we are neither of those things. We are neither NASA nor Space Force, but we enjoy the values of Starfleet, and we embody those values today. So we have taken on, in honor of that, both their name and various thematic elements of the fictional Starfleet in the real world Starfleet. We are members of Starfleet, the International Star Trek Fan Association Incorporated, which is an international organization, the largest Star Trek fan association in the world. We have thousands of members in hundreds of chapters across dozens of countries around the world, and the Dauntless is one of those. We are the chapter based in Cape Town, South Africa, although we have members all over the place, and our principal way of communicating with each other is online via Discord, is our main hub of operations. So that's what the Dauntless is. And let's just remind ourselves about what the mission of the USS Dauntless is. So, our mission is to bring the message of Gene Roddenberry's vision for the future of humankind to the people of Africa and the Middle East. That's Gene Roddenberry, the great bird of the galaxy, as he's sometimes known. And he was the guy who kicked this whole thing off. He's the one who started the whole Star Trek revolution, and we are part of that. We are part of his legacy. Why Africa and the Middle East? Well, because as I mentioned, Starfleet, the International Star Trek Fan Association Incorporated, which is commonly referred to as just Starfleet International, is a very large organization and covers a lot of territory. And in order to make that a bit more manageable, they have chopped up the Earth's surface into 20 distinct geographic regions, of which we are in Region 8. Region 8 encompasses Africa and the Middle East, and so that is where our sphere of influence lies. Now we have particular interest in pushing this mission. That is what we're here to do, and also that mission is clarified in the form of a number of standing orders, which are very important, some more so than others. But also, sort of in a nutshell, what we're here to do is to promote the values and the philosophy of Star Trek, of that fictional Star Trek universe, and of Starfleet in particular, and also to provide a space where fans, where Star Trek fans, that is us and people like us, can connect with one another, to build a community, to build a communication layer that we can use to share ideas and share our love of Star Trek, and hopefully to spread that love of Star Trek to more people and to welcome them into this family that we've built for ourselves, and also to engage in activities that promote the values that we embody. I've done a whole video on the values of Starfleet. I suggest that you go and check that out if you're interested in learning more about that. But we are here today to talk about the communications department. Now, what is that? So the communications department is the public relations department of the USS Dauntless. Communications, or comms, are responsible for publishing the Dauntless news feed, the crow's nest, and for producing marketing material like brochures, pamphlets, advertisements, and content for this website. We'll go into more detail about all of these elements as we proceed today. Comms is also involved in managing the content of the Dauntless's public-facing online presence, such as social media pages and websites. Below, so on this page, we're going to look into more detail now about the various duty station positions that fall under the communications department. Active members who don't wish to volunteer may request to be assigned to communications as a standard position with no duties allocated. So this is a distinction that we have with our active duty personnel. So active duty personnel of the Dauntless are members who are members of the Dauntless and who want to be actively involved in the day-to-day duties and activities aboard the ship. There are two large groups of active duty personnel. One of them are duty station holders. So these are people who have taken on specific responsibilities. They're volunteers who serve the Dauntless crew through various different channels. Each department has a list of duty station positions that exist within that department's area of influence. And the communications is no different. We'll look through those duty stations in a moment. And then the other pool is people who hold what we call standard positions. So these are, it's basically just a title, but that title is linked again to a department, and those members have no specific deliverables allocated to them. They haven't volunteered for a specific position, but they are available to help out in any way possible. And just because you serve in one department doesn't mean you can't help out other departments. And people who have opted for the standard position way of being a Dauntless member gives them a fair amount of fluidity in their Dauntless activity, which means that they're not locked into a specific set of deliverables. They can move around within the department and within the wider ship and do all kinds of things if that is what they wish to do. This is, of course, distinct from people like reserves or passengers who are members of the Dauntless on paper but aren't actively involved in any of our activities. They often just like to sit and watch what we do from the sidelines, which is a perfectly acceptable thing to do if that is what you like. But those who wish to be active are active duty, and that means you're either a standard position holder or a duty station holder. If you'd like to request assignment to the communications department as a standard position, apply here. So typically the way that works is if you are wishing to join a department, you would join the department as a standard position holder for, however long a period you like. And then as a standard position holder within that department, you would then acquire the necessary skills and experience in order to then volunteer for a duty station. Again, we'll go into more details about what a duty station looks like a little later. I have done, of course, another video like this, a briefing video on the concept of duty stations, and I recommend that you go and check that out if you wish to. Again, it's on our YouTube channel. But let's look first at what the activities are of the communications department. What does the comms department do? So, among other things, the communications department is responsible for managing the Dauntless communication channels. So, as I mentioned, the Dauntless, although we are an in-person group, we are real people who live in the real world and get together and do things in the real world. The the bulk of our activity happens online. That is through a communications network known as the Internet. You might have heard of it. And our specific communication place is a platform called Discord at the moment. That has changed over the years. It hasn't always been Discord. Obviously, the Dauntless has existed for around 20 years at this point, and Discord isn't as old as that. So we've moved from platform to platform based on whatever new platform arose that better suited our needs than whatever we were using before. Currently, that means Discord. If you're watching this video many years into the future, we've probably moved on to the next thing or the thing after that. So Discord is a great place for us right now here in 2024, and that is meeting all of our needs for the most part. So that means we have chat spaces like Discord, but we also have other tools that we use for members who perhaps are less comfortable in Discord or who like to do things in other places online. We'd like to have a community corner set aside for people there. So we have a Facebook group, for example, for members of the crew who use Facebook regularly. They can also engage in that platform. And then we also have broadcast channels. So these are places where we generate content from within the Dauntless, and then we broadcast it either to an internal audience. Some of our broadcast content is only broadcasted to other members of our crew. Some of it is broadcasted out to the general public, as is the case with these briefings videos. Although these videos are intended primarily for an internal audience, they are available for the wider public. So even if you're not a member of the Dauntless, you're welcome to watch, and I hope that some of you are doing so. And that is places like YouTube, Instagram, our Facebook page, and so on. So the communications department is responsible for managing these and the others, and so it goes. We'll go into more detail about all of these as we progress today. Communications is also responsible for generating marketing materials. So okay, this is kind of a complex topic, but let's just talk about the generating of the marketing materials to begin with. So the Dauntless has historically, up until this year, not done a lot of marketing. We have decided to do only passive marketing, which is to say that we would participate in local events, we would do word of mouth, so that's talking to other people who might be interested in what we're doing, and we didn't do any active recruiting campaigns until this year. But we decided early this year that it was time to change that policy, so we embarked on an active recruiting campaign in the first part of this year. You might have seen some of the videos. In fact, you will be seeing some of the content that we generated for that campaign as we progress today, because it's still up on some of our various channels. So generating that content, so that means creating videos, writing text articles, taking photographs, publishing those, that kind of thing, that the main responsibility of that lies with the communications department. But the communications department is dependent on members throughout the crew documenting their own activities. So especially when it comes to things like missions, which are the discrete activities that our crew embarks upon, if you are on a mission, it's up to you. We're asking you to please take records of what you're doing. So that means taking photos, taking videos, jotting down notes, anything else that you might feel help to document what you've done, do so that that can then be passed on to the communications department, and then content can be generated from that. So although it's the communications department's job to generate the content, they're drawing resources from throughout the ship, from members throughout the ship who are performing their various activities and doing their things, and then providing that that source material to the comms team, who can then generate content from that. So what does that mean? That means creating content for external distribution. So that's videos like this one, writing articles, even generating advertisements. That's working with the command department to maintain brand cohesion. We haven't yet done a briefing video on the command department. I think we're going to do command last. But command department are essentially the department that's responsible for leadership activities, and included in that is maintenance of the brand. So it is the responsibility of the command team to make sure that everything that the Dauntless projects out into the world is in line with the image that we as a group have decided that we want to project. Sometimes we need to tweak something here or adjust something there to make sure that everything is, what they say, on brand, but it is the command department's job to manage what that brand looks like, and the communications team works with the command department to ensure that all of that material that is being generated is coherent with that brand strategy, whatever that might be on any given moment. comms team are also responsible for design work on websites, social media pages, and that kind of thing. Obviously, with social media platforms, there's only so much design work that can be done. But our website, for example, this one here, was generated by the comms team a couple of years ago now. So that all comes from communications. There's also further, there's more. Let's carry on. So internal announcements. So that, what does that mean? That means generating content for the Crow's Nest video series. I'll talk about the Crow's Nest in a moment, but it is an internal news update series, and the comms team are responsible for producing those videos. They will again source information that they're producing videos from various other duty station holders throughout the ship. Any duty station holder aboard is tasked with producing with generating information to be passed on to the comms team that can be turned into those videos as and when appropriate. But it is the comms team's job to actually generate those videos, to promote upcoming events and missions. I've done another briefing video again on missions. So mission is what we call an event, essentially. All of our events are a mission of some description. We've got 3 different levels, priorities 1, 2, and 3. And we've got 2 different kinds of missions. We've got just regular missions and away missions. But those are all essentially different events. And although it rests on the shoulders of the person who created the event, the mission commander, to do the principal promotion of that event, the communications team is available to assist that person with doing any kind of promotion, being it internal or external, that they can help with. So if you are commanding an event and you're hoping to advertise it to the rest of the crew, you can do as much of that as you like, but also you can enlist the assistance of the comms team, who can then help you widen that message. Maybe they can help you create a cool design banner for your event page on Discord or on Facebook group or whatever it is, or maybe they can share it out on our social media platforms or something like that. If you'd like to publicize your event, which is part of your responsibility, you can enlist the comms team to assist you with that. Also posting relevant reminders. So whenever important things are coming up, things that people need to be reminded of, like for example, our priority 1 mission that's coming up this weekend, that's quite important. People need to be reminded of that. It is although it is the chief medical officer's mission that he is responsible for, and by he I mean I am acting in that capacity at the moment. The chief medical officer is responsible for that mission. Everybody needs to be reminded of it because it's a priority 1 mission, and so the comms team can be enlisted to assist with reminding everybody that that is something that they need to be paying attention to. And then the other thing that comms team are responsible for is the civilian outreach program. We'll go into a bit more detail about that in a moment as well. And what does that look like? That is managing the Star Trek South Africa Facebook group. So this is a public Facebook group as opposed to our private USS Dauntless Facebook group. A public Facebook group that anybody is welcome to join, as long as they pass the verification requirements to make sure that they are an actual person and not some kind of bot or something like that. And then we invite the public to talk about Star Trek, specifically from a South African context, because that's where we're based. And that is a good place where we are able to then recruit new members from who might be interested in joining our crew. But even if they don't want to join the crew, that's fine. We just want to build and manage a community of Star Trek fans, whether those fans are Dauntless crew members or not. Advocating for Standing Order Number 1 in planning and execution of events by other departments. What is Standing Order Number 1? Let's go back to our mission. Why is that even open? Here's our mission. So remember, we have these standing orders which clarify our overarching mission. Standing order number 1 is to promote Star Trek to our friends, families, and the people around us, which is further clarified in the form of promote and represent Star Trek online and in person, Star Trek gaming, viewing events, represent Star Trek and Starfleet at public events. At least 2 of these items are relevant to the sphere of influence of the communications department, and so it is the comms team's job to advocate for keeping those elements in mind, those aspects of our mission when we're planning events. We want to be doing as far as possible, going as far as possible to include non-Dauntless crew members in our activities so that we can promote not only Star Trek as a form of entertainment, as an inspirational medium, but also the values of Star Trek that we embody. And also creating content designed to promote Star Trek to the wider public. This one can be a little bit tricky because we are not endorsed by Paramount Pictures, who are the current owners of the Star Trek franchise. We don't have any kind of formal relationship with them, and in fact, if anything, they've been somewhat antagonistic with Starfleet over the years. So we have to be careful when generating content promoting Star Trek, because we're doing so for free and without their consent, and really they don't really want us involved in that, which is a puzzling attitude to have. But anyway, so we have to be careful not to infringe on any of their copyrights, and they can get quite cross about that if we're not careful enough. So there is a bit of a minefield relating to that particular aspect of the comms team's duties, but it is a thing that happens, and it's quite important. Right, so those are the activities of the communications team. Let's look at the various duty stations within the communications department. So first up, obviously, is the Chief Communications Officer, who is the department head for the communications department of the Dauntless. Department head acts as a communications conduit, funnily enough, between the command department and the communications department, and is charged with overseeing the department's areas of responsibility. That's a pretty standard job description for a department head. You'll notice that there is no one in this photograph, and the position is currently vacant, and you are welcome to apply. A note there is that just because the position is currently vacant doesn't mean that we don't have somebody in line for that position. I did a video some time ago about the induction process, which is a lengthy process by which a member can become assigned to a duty station position. And it's a process that takes, as I said, some time, can take months sometimes. All you have to do is be interested in taking on a position, and then you needn't necessarily have any of the prerequisites, any of the requirements. During the induction process, a team of mentors will guide you through ticking off all the necessary boxes that you need in order to take on the position. You'll then receive on-the-job training on how to perform the various tasks associated with the position, and only once you have been assessed such that everyone, including yourself, are confident and comfortable that you're able to do the job, only then are you appointed to the position. So just because it says that it's vacant, which is currently true, there is currently no one sitting in that position, doesn't mean that there isn't somebody already in the induction process on their way to become the Chief Communications Officer. It just means that they haven't achieved it yet. We don't advertise when somebody is in induction process for a duty station, because we need to leave it open so that members can change their mind at some point during the induction process if they wish to, and not lose face. We want everybody to have a positive experience, and it can be embarrassing if you were to go halfway through an induction process, everybody knew you were doing it, and then you backed out and you felt like you couldn't cut it. That could be embarrassing, and we wouldn't want to put somebody in a situation like that. So we leave the induction as anonymous until it happens. So again, it is currently vacant, but there might be somebody in the induction process heading towards Chief Communications Officer. If you are interested in occupying this position, I invite you to fill in the form anyway. You will then be advised whether or not there is a spot for you in the queue. Perhaps Chief Communications Officer is already spoken for because there's someone ahead of you in the queue, but then there's also always the Deputy Chief Communications Officer, which you could then work towards. Or perhaps we might encourage you to choose a different duty station on board, or perhaps we'd ask you to please stand by until another spot opens up, or something like that. We can have that kind of a conversation, that negotiation, after you've already made your application. But please, if you're interested in serving in any of these positions, please feel free to apply, and then we can discuss it from there. Right, so this position, as with most department heads, cannot be held by an enlisted member. There are two classes of members. Well, there are many different classes of members, but when it comes to rank, we have two different classes. We have commissioned officers, so that's ensign and up, and then we have enlisted members, which is master, chief, petty officer, and down. So only commissioned officers, ensign and up, are eligible to serve as the chief communications officer, as the name implies. So what are the duties of the Chief Communications Officer? So we've got our standard department head duties, one of which is departmental supervision, and that means maintaining open lines of communication with members of the communications department. This requires attempting to have at least one communications exchange with each member of the department per calendar month. Ideally, that communication would take the form of a crew report. Every member of the crew is asked to submit a report on the final day of every month, detailing their various relevant activities, what missions they attended, what challenges they participated in, how much public service duty they've done, how many courses they did at the academy, any other information they think that might be relevant, and then that can then be passed up through the chain of command. It is the department head's duty to collect the crew reports from the members of their department so that that can be collated into the departmental monthly status report, which is the next item on the list, which then gets collated again into the chapter monthly status report, which moves on to Starfleet operations and so on. I did a briefing video on the various reporting structures within the Dauntless. I recommend going and taking a look at that. But that's what that is about. But if you are, as a crew member, not able or willing or capable of producing a full report, that's fine, as long as you are touching base with your department head at least once a month, having any kind of interaction, a phone call, an email exchange, a private message, smoke signals, coffee date, whatever it is. If you're touching base with your department head once a month at least, that means that you are remaining engaged. Preferably that would look like a crew report, but strictly speaking, that's not 100% necessary. Right, so that's what that looks like. Every department head is expected to do that with every member of the department. Then, as I said, move on to the DMSR, the Departmental Monthly Status Reports, which are due on the 3rd of every month, which includes all of the various activities of that department has done for the month. Then we get onto the Crow's Nest, which is generating content for the internal video update series. Now, it's a little different for the Chief Communications Officer because the comms chief is also editing and publishing the Crow's Nest. But as a department head, the comms chief should also be working to see what information is relevant from within the context of the communications department themselves that might be of interest to the rest of the crew, so that that can form part of the Crow's Nest. So not only are you producing the Crow's Nest, but you're also trying to source content from within your own department to put into Crow's Nest videos. But there we go. So next item on the list there is editorial control, and that is editing and publishing the Crow's Nest. Also editing and publishing posts through the Dauntless social media feeds. So that's Twitter, although that's now known as X, Instagram, Facebook, and so on. We have accounts on all of those. And it's the comms chief's job to decide which content that we produce goes to which channel. Obviously within consultation and the guidance from the command department, but usually we'll leave that to the comms chief to decide which channel is the appropriate one for any given piece of content. And then also editing the content of the USS Dauntless website. So that's this website. In fact, there are two websites. There's this one, which is the public-facing website, and there is the Dauntless main computer, which is our internal private website that is only available to active duty members of the crew. The communications team is responsible for both of them. We treat them as if they're one website with a public area and a private area, but actually they're two distinct websites. Then there's delegation, which is performing any and all duties that Deputy Chief Communications Officer is unable to perform. What this tells us is that all of the work that happens within the communications department ultimately rests on the shoulders of the department head. So if there's any member of your team that is unable to do any particular work, then that flows up, and the communications chief is responsible for doing that work. Within reason, right? So it means you're responsible for ensuring that that work happens, but that doesn't mean you necessarily have to do every little bit of work yourself. If there's a way that you can persuade somebody else who is not the designated volunteer responsible for that duty to perform that work instead of you, then that's fine. It is, however, your job to make sure that the work gets done. Officer of the Watch, this is standard for all senior duty stations, and that means providing moderation and administration support to internal and external Dauntless communications channels. So this looks like it's a communications specific function, but actually this applies again to most senior duty station positions. What that means is keeping an eye on the various Dauntless communications channels in case somebody posts something inappropriate or shares something to the wrong channel or something like that. We want to make sure that that gets locked down quickly. So whether that's deleting an inappropriate message or asking for clarification or perhaps putting somebody on mute temporarily or something like that, or having a conversation with somebody who seems to be posting something inappropriate. We are all members, all of our members are human, and we're all prone to mistakes. We're all prone to having emotional outbursts and that kind of thing from time to time. So on rare occasions, inappropriate things get posted, and somebody needs to step in and take action when that happens. And that is all of the officers of the watch. It's worth saying that that happens very, very seldom. We have automated moderating tools, bots, AIs, whatever you want to call them, on most of our communications platforms that are able to flag for us whenever somebody posts something potentially inappropriate, but almost always it's just somebody said a naughty word and we kind of don't care about that. Posting actual inappropriate content almost never happens, but we need to be vigilant in case these kinds of things do sometimes happen. We can take swift action should the need arise. Then there's fleet operations, which is collaborating and coordinating with communications, moderation and marketing communities within Region 8 and Starfleet International. So in this case, that would be the communications departments within the Region 8 regional staff and also within Starfleet International's communications staff. So there's no auxiliary, which is a club within a club that handles communications, so far as I know. But there is under the communications, the chief communications officer, which is one of the executives under the commander Starfleet. He has a staff which operates the Starfleet newsletter, the communique, and does various other communications related activities. So keeping lines of communication open between the Dauntless and those personnel serving in those roles would be part of the job of the chief communications officer. The comms chief reports to the executive officer, who is the first officer, the second in command of the chapter. And here we look at the qualifications. So these are the things that the applicant should have when applying for this position. Now, remember, as part of the induction process, you don't actually have to have any of these when going into the induction process. All you need to have is a willingness and an interest in taking on the role. And what we'll be looking for is, I mean, the more of these you can have as you're stepping into the role, the better. We'll go through what all of these mean in a moment. The more of these you can have, the better. But really what we're looking for in that initial interview is whether or not you have the right attitude and the right sort of personality to take on the role. So as a senior staff member, do you present yourself well? Are you professional? Are you willing and able to take on new skills? Are you confident in social situations, especially if you're something like a communications officer? Do you embody those particular aspects of Starfleet values that we can then promote through that position? And then if we feel that you are a good culture fit for the position, then we will work with you to get all of these items checked off. So what are the items we're talking about? So applicant must be an active participant in a bare minimum of 30% of all USS Dauntless activities measured over a 3-month time frame. So this is a requirement that we usually give to departments that have no activities of their own. So something like operations or engineering, those departments typically don't have any events or missions that they run. So duty station holders within those departments would be expected to participate then in all Dauntless activities, at least 30% of those. Communications does actually have some missions of its own. This is one of communications missions, but they are few and far between. So the briefing with the Admiral is pretty much the only one that happens on a regular basis. On occasion, the communications team will maybe have an internal meeting or a shoot day for some promotional video or something like that, but those don't happen very often. So we're not going to require that communications officers sort of manufacture reasons to have communications events when they're not really needed, because they only happen on an as needed basis. So instead, we have calibrated this activity requirement in the same way that we do for teams that don't have their own activities, which is to say that these applicants need to be participating in 30% of all Dauntless activities across the ship. So that includes in-person activities, so that's away missions, online activities, so that's regular missions, and also the monthly challenges. So that's things like the fitness challenge, linguistics challenge, reading challenge. If you're in the combat training challenge, if you're participating in a minimum of 30% of those challenges month on month for the last 3 months, then you have met that requirement. Applicant must also be an active user of Discord, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And we could probably adjust that list. There's one or two more that should be added to that list now as well. And frankly, Facebook is a dying platform. We can probably consider removing that from the list. But at least for now, we are nominally active on Facebook. So let's leave it on for the time being. Then what are the other requirements we need? So the applicant needs to be grade 02, which is lieutenant junior grade. If you've met these other requirements, you're almost certainly well beyond lieutenant junior grade, but that is the bare minimum. You need to have completed the Officers Training School, which is the OTS at Starfleet Educational Services, formerly known as Starfleet Academy. You need to have this to get this anyway. So unless you've been promoted to an officer rank on a different chapter and transferred here, which happens, but it's rare, then you will typically have this already before you have that. You need to have completed the Starfleet Data Protection Policy exam, so the SFDPP 101 and 102 from Starfleet Educational Services. These are the initial exams that you do the first year, and then every year after that you need to take a top-up or an update exam in order to keep your certification current. This is the policy that covers us in handling personal identifying information. Every senior officer in the fleet is required to complete this exam and to keep it updated annually, and the Chief Communications Officer of the Dauntless is one of those. What that does is it gives you the necessary legal framework, the understanding, and the training in order to be able to handle personal identifying information of the members of the crew, so you know how to do that. in line with international laws. So laws in places like Europe, even here in South Africa, some parts of the United States are quite strict about how we handle personal identifying information of our members. And so we have to operate within those constraints, given that are an international organization and we need to comply with the laws of all of the different jurisdictions in which we operate. So the SFDPP is updated every year to reflect any changes on that international law, those international legal standards. And so we have to retake that exam every year in order to make sure that our certification remains up to date with the latest developments. So Chief Communications Officer has to take the SFDPP and keep that up to date. Next, we have the Bridge Officer Certification, which is Chief Communications Officer, again from Starfleet Educational Services. So what does this look like? Bridge Officer Certification is not one exam. It is a certification that you earn by completing a number of different exams. And then the Bridge Officer Certification program will outline a list of courses that you can take through educational services in order to earn the Chief Communications Officer certification. This is less about the on-the-ground practical responsibilities of being the Chief Communications Officer of the Dauntless, and it more relates to the kind of conceptual and metaphorical reason for why we have designated this position. So what is the within the context of Star Trek, what do Chief Communications Officers do, and how have we adapted that fictional context and that concept into our real life application here? So understanding the connection between those two things, the fictional Chief Communications Officer and the real Chief Communications Officer, will help us to understand really the sphere of influence, the authority and the activities of the Chief Communications Officer going forward, even if and as that role evolves over time. Looking at those fictional examples of people like Lieutenant Uhura and Hoshi Sato and people like that, we can. So that is why we have our bridge officers complete those bridge officer certifications, so they can get a sense of the conceptual association between the fictional Star Trek and their real life duties that they do day to day. Next, you'll need to do the new recruit orientation course, which again is pretty standard. All active duty members of the Dauntless are required to complete that on joining. You need to have an active membership to Starfleet in good standing. So what that means is you need to be a dues paying member of Starfleet, the International Star Trek Fan Association. Why does that matter? Well, it relates to the Starfleet Data Protection Policy. Because that exam needs to be renewed every year, you won't be able to renew it if you don't have an active membership for Starfleet. So although we don't really like requiring that people pay a membership fee, the Starfleet International membership fee is really quite affordable, and it does unlock all kinds of things, including the SFDPP recertification through educational services. Plus a lot of other good things as well. I've done another briefing video like this one on the benefits of joining Starfleet International, which I invite you to go review if you are in any doubt. Next is a correct and accurate standard duty uniform. So the Class B standard duty uniform, which is, I'm wearing mine today. In fact, this is my new one. Hope you like it. I just had this one made for myself. I might need to adjust it slightly. I'm not sure it fits 100% correctly yet, but it's pretty close, and I like my new uniform. So yours wouldn't look exactly like this unless you are also an Admiral. But you aren't, because I'm the only one aboard right now. Yours would look a little bit different. It wouldn't have the gold piping down the sides, and the rank insignia would be different. And also you would have a gold undershirt instead of a red undershirt like this. But all of our senior officers are required to have standard duty uniforms, because we are representing the Dauntless not only with our words, not only with our digital avatars, but also with our actual human faces. We are the faces of the Dauntless, and we therefore need to put our best feet forward. And especially the communications chief, who is going to be on camera fairly often representing the Dauntless with his or her actual face, needs to be doing so in the best possible light. And that includes having a proper uniform, an SDU. Now, of course, there are plenty of other uniforms available. The one that most of us already have is the LU, the Class C uniform, but that is not very formal, and it's not very professional for these kinds of activities. We really should be wearing a Class B standard duty uniform when we're representing the Dauntless in official functions like this. This is the Dauntless equivalent of a business suit. So suit and tie, we would be wearing that in a civilian context, but in a Dauntless context, we wear the Class B standard duty uniform. Then within 6 months of being appointed to the position, we expect the applicant to have completed the PD 100 certification through the Starfleet branch, actually the Starfleet Marine Corps branch of the Educational Services, which I believe is the Marine Corps Training Center now. I keep forgetting that new name. Colonel Hubert, please remind me again. You have to remind me every time until it sinks in. But PD 100 is the Professional Development Level 1 exam, and in my opinion is one of the most useful and important courses in the whole of educational services, which is why we have that requirement there. Privileges of the Chief Communications Officer. Upon appointment is granted a conditional promotion to the grade of 03, which is lieutenant. Again, if you've got all of these, you're probably well past lieutenant by the time we get there, but just in case you haven't achieved that rank yet, you will get it on appointment. And if you hold the position for 6 months, that appointment becomes permanent. It's that promotion becomes permanent. The next duty station in the communications department is the Deputy Chief Communications Officer. So as the name suggests, it is the right-hand person to the comms chief. Whenever the comms chief is unable to perform their duties, the deputy chief is there to step in and help out. Important difference between the two is that the deputy comms chief position can be held by an enlisted member. It just uses a different title, the Chief Communications Non-Commissioned Officer. There is a slight difference in what kind of duties the Chief Comms NCO can do versus a Deputy Chief Comms Officer, but it's mostly the same job. We wouldn't have both. Colonel Hubert says the Marine Training Center, the MTC. Thank you very much. MTC, which is similar to MTG. Thank you for that mnemonic. I appreciate that. Hopefully it'll sink in eventually. As you'll see, also the Deputy Chief Comms is also currently vacant, but again, that doesn't mean that there isn't somebody currently in the orientation process, but that I said the induction process, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't apply. If you're interested in holding that position, we can do our best to help you achieve your Starfleet career goals in that way. Duties and qualifications are very much the same as the comms chief. There are no duties under deputy comms chief that aren't included in comms chief. Basically, the comms chief is the deputy is just there to help out the comms chief with their duties. Some of this stuff can be a lot of work, and so it's helpful to have those duties split over 2 people instead of relying only on one person for all of it. So that's essentially what the deputy comms chief is there for. The deputy reports, therefore, to the Chief Communications Officer as their right-hand person, and the list of requirements are very, very similar. The only item that's really different here is that the deputy doesn't need to have that bridge officer certification for Chief Communications Officer on application. They will need to have that within 6 months of appointment along with the PD 100. But it's worth having anyway, and it doesn't really hurt to do that. All of the other requirements are basically the same. For the non-commissioned equivalent of that, I see we have included the data protection policy requirement even for non-coms. That's quite a tall ask for non-coms. Non-coms typically are not active duty members of Starfleet International. Most people who sign up with SFI will become a commissioned officer that same afternoon because it's the easiest exam you can possibly find at the Starfleet Academy is the Officers Training School, which is the exam that the certification that allows you then to become a commissioned officer. So most active duty members, as most members of Starfleet International are already commissioned officers. So asking a non-com to also get the SFDPP can be a tall ask, but when we're talking about a position like communications, when you're dealing with PII, it's probably essential. So when we're talking about social media platforms, we're connecting with people's personal social media profiles, which means that this person is responsible for knowing which personal social media profile on Facebook or Instagram or something like that is linked to which member of the crew, and that in itself is personal identifying information. So this person would then need to know how to handle that kind of information within the context of the Dauntless. So quite important. What are the privileges there? Well, they're very similar. One thing that's different is that when the Chief Communications Officer position becomes vacant, the deputy is automatically considered an applicant for the position, regardless of his or her qualifications. It doesn't mean you necessarily automatically get promoted up to the job, but it means that you are automatically offered the position as you're given first option to go into induction for that position. So when the Chief Communications Officer position becomes vacant, if you are the deputy, you are offered the option to go into induction for that role if you choose to. It's yours to refuse. If you don't wish to take on that responsibility, that is your right, but you are at least considered an applicant automatically. The Chief Communications Non-Com also gets an automatic promotion to the grade of Chief Petty Officer or E7, but does not obviously then stand in automatic succession to the Chief Communications Officer because they are a non-com, and the non-coms cannot be a department head. This is one of the departments that has more communications, is more duty stations than just the two. So the next one up is communications operator. We currently have no communications operators serving aboard, but what's interesting about this role is that we can have multiple people serving in this same role. So a communications operator, or just called an operator, is responsible for managing the Dauntless's many communication systems, such as web forums, chat rooms, or social media groups. The operators are moderators of the channels, exercising the right to invite, add, scold, kick, or block members of those channels. This station may be held by multiple crew members simultaneously, up to one per channel. So what this looks like is essentially a moderator, somebody who is assigned to moderate a particular communications channel. So that might be Discord, which is quite a big one, or it might be our Facebook group, or it might be our Blizzard community, or our Goodreads group, or our Steam group, or something like that. We would have one communications operator who is assigned to be a moderator for that channel. And we can have as many communications operators as we have communications channels, and we have many communications channels. So if you're looking for a duty station position that has a relatively limited scope, which then opens you up to a lot of flexibility with your time in doing other activities, so effectively a part-time duty station, as it were, this is a good choice for you. You can then get the credit of being a duty station holder, but not necessarily having to do much work, especially if you choose as your channel of choice one of the quieter channels. So something like our Goodreads group, we tend not to talk much in that group because we're talking on Discord instead. We have a reading challenge channel here on Discord, so we use that for discussing reading related activities. But if you are the communications operator for that channel, it would be up to you to try and stimulate engagement and activity on that communications channel if you wished to do so. So what does the job entail? It means monitoring the relevant communication channel as often as is convenient. We don't expect you to be watching it 24/7, but you should be checking in on it at least once a day or so to make sure that nothing too sketchy is happening. Admitting applicants to the channel in accordance with security policies as laid down by the Chief Security Officer. So the Chief Security Officer, we haven't done a video like this on the security department yet, but we'll do that soon. Chief Security Officer will give you a set of requirements that will let you know how to qualify a new member for your communications channel, how you can decide who gets to be let in and who doesn't. Based on those requirements as laid down by the Chief Security Officer, you then will have the right to let new people in or reject new applicants as the need arises. Assuming, of course, that the channel in question permits you to do that. Some channels don't necessarily have high granularity on their security access controls, which means that the security department might have to do that work for you, or possibly even the XO or myself might have to do that for you if it's a really low granularity system. But most of the channels will allow us to give you the necessary access so that you can manage membership to your channel if as needed, and that will be done according to the stipulations laid down by security. Then seeking command authorization before kicking or blocking a user from a channel. So this would only be done in extreme circumstances if somebody is really habitually misbehaving themselves or has done something really egregious, and you feel like you have no choice but to remove them from the channel. That's not a call you want to be making on your own. You want to check in with command first before you do that, because that would have implications for the rights of that member, and we want to make sure that everybody's rights are fully respected, insofar as it serves the wider community. So you want to check in with command before making a decision like kicking or blocking somebody, but it would be your job to do that, to seek that approval. And then also publicizing Dauntless activities on the channel as appropriate. So it wouldn't really make any sense for you to promote let's see, something like a briefing with the Admiral, a video on the Goodreads group, because that's not really relevant to what we do in the Goodreads group. But maybe you want to be promoting our Priority 1 missions there. Maybe you want to be promoting our reading challenge results there. Maybe you want to be, that kind of thing. You get the idea. So you want to be picking which information is being disseminated through the various other communications channels that are relevant to your specific channel, and ensuring that those items are shared there accordingly. You might be delegated by the Chief Communications Officer to format an article or a piece of content that has been produced by the communications team for specific inclusion in your channel. Let's say you're the communications operator for Instagram, and it's up to you to edit down a 1-minute clip of me talking through the briefing so that it can be shared to a reel on Instagram, something like that. This person then reports to the Chief Communications Officer, as you might expect. The qualifications here are quite similar, actually, to the other duty stations. We have that 30% activity requirement. We have uh, same kind of usage requirements. In this case, it would be Discord, and then either Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or YouTube or whatever other platform it is that you are assigned to do. You wouldn't necessarily need a familiarity with all of them, but it would probably help. Um, this is perfectly suitable for enlisted personnel, but we do have that that SFDPP requirement for communications operators, because again, we are linking people's personal, private social media accounts to their Dauntless membership, and managing that information there is something that is covered in the SFDPP. So it's important to know what those things do. You don't need to have that bridge officer certification because you're not a bridge officer, but that PD 100 certification is still strongly recommended. Privileges are: on appointment, the operator is granted a conditional promotion to the grade of E6, which is Petty Officer First Class. After holding the position for continuous 6 months, the promotion becomes permanent. If you've completed the SFDPP, you're probably already beyond E6 at that point anyway, but there it is, just in case you're not. Then we also have one non-human member of the communications team, and that is the Emergency Communications Hologram, which is a semi-automated video avatar and Discord bot designed as a short-term supplement to the communications staff. Her capabilities vary based on current requirements, and she may be controlled by other members of the senior staff as needed. So she is, as I said, semi-automated. She's kind of like a puppet, so that other members of the team are able to use the chief communications as the emergency communications hologram to perform various communications tasks if there is no human available to do those tasks. And one of the things that she is called upon to do is that she will often be the face of the crow's nest videos that we do. So instead of someone else wearing an inappropriate uniform for the task, having their face on that video, we'll have an actual representative of the communications team on the crow's nest video. She is even wearing a Class B uniform, which is nice and appropriate. So those are the different positions within the communications department. We have plenty of openings, not only the department head and the deputy department head, but these communications operators, as many as we can fit into the department head, into the department, are available, and we can fit plenty. So if we have a communications channel which is not currently being looked after by an operator, you are welcome to sign up for that position. Please do so as soon as you possibly can, because we need the help. Some of those channels get quite busy, and it's helpful to have somebody overseeing those channels. All right, so something I wanted to talk about that falls under the purview of the communications department is the civilian outreach program. Now, I've done a whole separate video on the civilian outreach program, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about it here because I've already covered there. But what is civilian outreach program? Well, this is the thing that addresses our here, standing order number 1, to promote Star Trek to our friends, families, and the people around us. Civilian outreach is it's core to our mission of pursuing Gene's dream, that we help to bring the message of Star Trek to our local communities. The civilian outreach program is the main thrust of that effort. This program isn't a recruiting tool, although often new recruits do find us through these channels, so that's an important distinction to remember. Where this is not intended as a recruiting pipeline. We need to be considering that when we're reaching out to the public, we're doing so as ambassadors of Star Trek, not as recruiters for Starfleet. If we happen to recruit people along the way, amazing, but that should never be our primary objective here. Our primary objective is spreading the word of Star Trek, to promote Star Trek as an instructional and educational and inspirational vision of what the future of humankind could be. And if people are so inspired by that vision that they would like to join, then that would be amazing. But that's not what we're doing it for. This is our way of supporting the local Star Trek fan communities, consisting of people who love Star Trek but aren't necessarily interested in serving Starfleet. So there are communities like that. There are people out there. There are Facebook pages and role-playing groups and gaming clans who are engaged in Star Trek-related activities but don't necessarily want to join Starfleet. And we want to be able to provide a community for those people so that they can enjoy and share their love of Star Trek with each other and with us without necessarily committing to being a member of Starfleet International or even of the USS Dauntless. This is out of date. The Dauntless has never engaged in active recruiting. As I mentioned, as of this year, we do engage in active recruiting. But obtaining new members isn't the objective of the outreach program. Our goal here remains to support the non-Starfleet community in engaging and growing the Star Trek fandom at large. There are two main legs to the program. These are the social media and civilian-friendly events. So social media, primarily this looks like the Star Trek South Africa Facebook group, which we operate, which is available to anybody. Anyone's free to join as long as you are a real human being and not a bot. You're welcome to join that and come and talk about Star Trek with us. And we engage civilians and indulge in the love of Star Trek. We promote discussions around news, humor, fan art, and just about anything of interest to fans. We also use the channel to promote USS Dauntless from time to time, but we try to keep that to a minimum. So because it's our channel, we run it, we have the right to use that for marketing if we so choose, but also because this might the existence of the Dauntless might be something that is of interest to fans, and they might like to know that we are out there. So promoting our activities is something that is potentially of benefit to them because they might want to join. And then the other side of this is in-person events. So most Dauntless events and away missions are appropriate for civilians, so we often promote them using social media. Whenever we engage in an in-person event, particularly when that event involves an opportunity to display our uniforms, so that is an away mission out in the world, demonstrate our interest in Star Trek or engage with Star Trek directly, we are sure to promote the events as widely as possible. So this is typically things like our blood donation missions. Those are very important, although those don't relate directly to Star Trek. It does relate to the values of Star Trek and Starfleet. And we try to, as far as practical, display our uniforms of those things, although rolling up your sleeves in an SDU can be a little bit challenging. That is one way that we can promote our interest in Star Trek, but the obvious solution there is, of course, what this photo depicts, which is popular culture conventions. That is the place where we're most likely to find other Star Trek fans out in the world, and so it's quite important that we display our uniforms in those places, whether that's our actual SDU or alternative uniforms that are also recognizable. Going to those kinds of places and being visibly seen as Star Trek fans is quite important, and it's the communications team to help coordinate those activities as part of the civilian outreach program. Let's take a look through, we've talked quite a lot quickly, but let's do a quick run through of the various different communications channels that the communications team are responsible for. So firstly, we have our internal channels, the most important of which, of course, is Discord. Here, I'm not going to show you our channels because we have private information in there, but you can get a sense of how many channels are on our Discord server. Each one of these is dedicated to a specific topic or set of topics, and most of them are quite active, or some of them are quite active, some of them are relatively quiet. This is our principal hub of where we coordinate all of our activities. All happens through Discord, and from here sometimes stuff gets farmed out to other communications channels, such as the Dauntless website. Oh, that's why I had that initial page up. So this is the front page of the Dauntless website, which admittedly needs a little bit of work, but that is for the communications team to handle. And this gives you a rough sense of what we're about and some links to some useful things where you can find out even more information about us. There is a lot of information about us on the Dauntless website, and even more in the private members-only website, the Dauntless main computer. We have a Google group, which I'm not going to show you now. In fact, I think we have a resources, com channels. Here we go. This is a good page to show you. We have a Google group, which is no longer our primary, this is out of date, it's no longer our primary communication system. That was replaced by Discord earlier this year. Google group is an email group where we can use to send out announcements via email if we so choose. And for the longest time, we used email groups as our primary communication systems, but as of early 2024, we decided that that wasn't really how people use the internet anymore. So we have switched over to Discord as our primary, and Google Group is one of our many secondary groups now. We also have a Facebook group, which is private. I'm not going to show you that. Well, it's not linked here. That's interesting. Yes, so we have a private Facebook group. It looks like it's pretty much dead. We're probably going to deactivate it at some point in the near future. But if you are interested in activating that and monitoring that or being a communications operator for our Facebook group, then that would be fine. We also have specialized channels that relate to particular activities, like we have our community on Blizzard. We have our Duolingo Classroom, which I think has some chat features or some collaboration features. Oh, there's our Facebook group there. We have a group on LinkedIn. We have one on Goodreads. We have a fleet in Star Trek Online. We have a community in Steam. We also have still a Slack workspace. Slack used to be our main communications hub before we switched to Discord. Um, we stopped using it for a variety of reasons, but it does still exist. So the members who still have access to that are free to keep using that as long as they wish to do so. Why they would, I don't really know, but it's there. Then we have our external communication channels, which are our Facebook page. I think I can actually show you what that looks like. There we go. That's our Facebook page. It looks very festive and nice, and you can see all of our various Facebook things, including all of our briefings that are all posted there, including this one, which will be posted there later today, and you can engage with us from there. We have an Instagram account, which mirrors some of our content from our Facebook page, as well as various other things from there. We have our YouTube channel, which is where this is being streamed live right now, and where we will be posting it later. A lot of our other video content is also posted to YouTube. We have an X account, formerly known as Twitter, which we use sparingly, but from time to time we'll post new content there. Again, if we had a communications operator that specialized in X, then that would be great. We have a Twitch channel, which we have used, I think, once. But it's something that we've decided is probably worth investing a little bit of time and effort into. So we'll probably be building out our Twitch presence over the next few months with some of our online gaming activities. And we also have, I didn't open it here, but we also now have a TikTok channel if you'd like to follow us on there, which is largely just a mirror of our Instagram channel, because let's face it, TikTok and Instagram are basically the same thing. So those are the things that we operate there in the communications department. Where did I put that tab? There it is. Oh, there it is. There's the TikTok link there. So those are the things that the communications department are responsible for. They're also responsible for a number of our sort of publications. We used to have a dedicated news feed on the website. Our new website doesn't have that, but we still produce news feed related content. So this is whenever something of import happens that has already happened sort of in the past, we will generate content about that. So that might be an announcement of somebody's rank promotion or assignment to a new position. That would typically be announced on Discord. So here in the announcements channel in Discord is where you would find those things. If that information is relevant or of interest to the general public, we will mirror that content on our Facebook page. So it will be posted here as well. I think we had, oh, no, it's knocked me out. But there's an article back there by Colonel Hubert. So that stuff will be mirrored there if it is of import or relevance to the outside world. And then we also have the crow's nest videos. So crow's nest videos look kind of like this. So these are, it's a short 1 or 2 minute video that is available only to the internal members of the crew. So let me just run this video and you can see what that looks like. I don't think you're getting audio through that. That's fine, but it's okay. So this is the emergency communications hologram. She is hosting the video and she is giving us a news broadcast about something of interest that had happened that week. This is an old one from some time ago. If you look at the start date there, it's from 4 months ago. She's just telling us something, reminding us of something important that was coming up that week, and that is what the crow's nest videos are for. So the various department heads are expected to produce material that can be handed on to the comms team, so the comms team can turn it into a crow's nest video, which can then be broadcast to the entire crew via internal channels. So that would go usually again on the announcements channel on the Discord, but will also be mirrored in places like the Facebook group, as long as it was relevant to do so. Excuse me, my non-humanoid companion is making stupid noises. There we go. So the crow's nest videos are quite important. Again, this is what we call a daily video. It doesn't go out every day. In fact, it's been some time since we put one out. What we mean by daily is that we don't put out more than one of these per day, and they are designed to be relatively brief, sort of a minute in length or less. So those are what the crow's nest videos look like, and that falls under the communications team. There's also the various marketing material. You saw some of that here on our Facebook channel. We've got these shorts and various other things. You will have noticed some of them here in these briefing videos. We like to feature some of those here as well. So the marketing material is also produced by the comms team. There's things like brochures and scanning QR codes that we can flash to new potential recruits. And then these briefing videos are also included in that stuff. So this is part of what the communications team are responsible for producing, is these briefing with the Admiral videos every week. So all of this stuff is used ultimately to promote the USS Dauntless, both internally to help keep people engaged for purposes of retention, but also to possibly even recruit new members externally. Right, so in conclusion, the communications department, let me switch this over. There we go. So in conclusion, the communications department is very important. All right. It is vital that somebody is overseeing the flow of communication both within the ship and from the ship to the outside world. And that is the role of the communications team principally. They are a tightly integrated team, both within the communications team themselves and also embedded within the rest of the ship. Every other department head is feeding information into the communications team so that they can use that to generate content, and the communications team are providing that information then back to the rest of the ship. So if the operations team is the beating heart of the Dauntless, the communications team is the nervous system of the Dauntless, constantly managing that flow of communication both within and without the Dauntless. The communications team is vital for that. All right, let's see if we have any comments. There's been a little bit of activity in the Discord channel. There we go. So the emergency medical hologram is causing trouble as usual. Colonel Bear says, I need to take a class on recruitment because the way I spread the love of Star Trek is apparently intense. I think there's space for an intense way of promoting Star Trek. I think that that's valid. If people can see just how much you love it, I think if they really get it, then maybe they'll be inspired to join. But on the other hand, we also don't want to frighten people off, so maybe it wouldn't hurt. Okay, Captain Van Kroonen. Oh, I need to welcome everybody who's here. So we've got Captain Van Kroonen, who is currently here. We've got Colonel Bear, we've got Master Chief Kotso, we've got Senior Chief Newton. I think I saw Recruit Carter jump in for a little bit, but he seems to be gone now, but that's fine. Thanks for joining. All right, let's see. Oh yes, Colonel Bear recognized her face on the Facebook page. There she was. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions or comments here. Nothing on YouTube. That's fantastic. Hopefully that means I've addressed all the necessary things. I just like to encourage that everybody participate as actively within the communications sphere of influence as possible, whether that means signing up for the communications department. We have lots of duty stations open in the communications department, many more there than anywhere else. So please consider signing up for one of those duty station positions. And what that does, if nothing else, is volunteering for a duty station looks really good on your Dauntless CV. Even if it's just a communications operator position, if you have aspirations of advancing to positions of higher authority over the years, whether that be a deputy department head or a full department head, or maybe even XO or CO someday, hopefully somebody someday will step up to replace me. That might be you. A good place to start your career there would be with a communications operator role in the communications team. So that's something to consider. But to finish off, I'd like to remind us all that the communications department is essential to the USS Dauntless, ensuring that the organization can meet its core mission to promote Star Trek and its values to a wider audience. By effectively communicating with the public and potential recruits, the communications department helps the Dauntless grow its membership and further its goals. All right, that is all for today. Thank you, everybody. You are dismissed. Swart out.